Kamala Harris is going to have a tough debate. CNN, actually, oh, they hated to have to do this, I'm sure, but they're caught admitting that, you know what, Kamala Harris, she kind of likes to poach some ideas that are Donald Trump's ideas. I mean, first there was the no tax on tips, right? And she said she'll do the same thing. Now there's this one. Turns out, who knew? She's like kind of into the wall thing. Yeah. So keep in mind what she used to say. All the tweets she used to put out there, she called it a vanity project, this, that, and the other. Well, she's saying something a little bit different right now, and CNN caught on. I want to share it with you.
And statements going all the way back to 2017. And what they found was more than 50 instances of Harris slamming Trump's border wall. But now, new Harris campaign ads actually showcase that very wall.
They do. They do. And so they showed the ad and, you know, basically you see, and I'm going to show some of it to you, you see the Trump wall and she's bragging about how tough she is on border issues and she's going to go after those criminals, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go to the CNN reporter that did the story.
Found more than 50 of those tweets criticizing the border wall before she used that in her ad. And I want people to take a look at just a few of what she said here. She called it wasteful, useless, a waste of taxpayer money, a vanity wall project, a wasteful border wall, a stupid wall, a medieval vanity project, and an unnecessary wall. And those are really just, I mean, there were more of this, just like 10 or like 50. But there was really a lot of this was the common refrain during the campaign. You read that quote where she said it was against everything that not only she stood for, everything America stood for, but and she brought this up a lot. Take a listen to just one instance of that in 2019.
It's the president's vanity project.
His multi-billion-dollar vanity project called a wall is nothing more than a distraction from the fact that he actually hasn't focused on working people in America. He contrived a national crisis around his big distraction.
All right, so you go through all of that, you've got all the tweets, and yet all of a sudden in the ads, there's pictures of the wall, and then you went through to look at that wall. Yeah. Like, what is that specific wall that's in her campaign ads now? And you found something very interesting about this specific portion of the wall.
And I think what's also really remarkable about this is, like, I mean, you heard her talking about it there, Trump's wall in his campaign during his presidency. There was really no greater symbol of Trump's presidency than the wall and the way that Democrats were attacking him over the wall and his restrictive immigration policies. So we looked in that ad, and if you look at it, that exact area of wall is in Sasabe, Arizona, and that is a portion of wall that was actually built by Donald Trump. It was built in an area where there was not previous wall. It was actually pretty controversial when they were building it at the time. So just to see that, and then there are other.
She's using his wall that he built to say, "Look at what I did."
And the other images of the wall, we weren't able to pinpoint, but there's telltale signs that was a Trump wall because there's an anti-climbing plate on top that became popularized during the Trump.
So what exactly is going on? Why does she keep stealing all his ideas? Maybe she's realizing that those ideas actually resonate. She was the border czar, for goodness sakes. Remember, the border czar that wouldn't go to the border, for goodness sakes. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't be bothered somehow. She was going to go, however, address the root causes of immigration and the challenges that they're having economically, et cetera, in all of Latin America. Listen, lady, like, unless you want to just incorporate, right, and say, okay, everybody in Latin America, South America, you're going to pay taxes too, and we're going to figure this out all together because we're in charge of North America. Hey, Canada, maybe you should join in. Unless you actually want to take that on, I don't think it's our responsibility. I don't think it's our responsibility as a nation to say, okay, we're going to fix all of Latin and South America so that hopefully people will stay there. I think, the most immediate crisis would be to say, okay, you can't come here. And look, this is not mean. I think Americans are incredibly altruistic, incredibly charitable, incredibly kind. It's not mean. It's just, frankly, realism. Because you have economic strains that are forced upon various communities when they are confronted with this migrant challenge. Look at New York City having to deal with it right now. Gosh, the mayor is like persona non grata. Because he's daring to say, wait a second, I don't think we can afford this. Well, New York can't, just like Texas can't. Arizona nobody can afford to take on what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden think they ought to be able to take on. And so she's finally coming to this realization because, hey, she needs to win in Arizona. She's trying to win in places like Pennsylvania. And I think this is sort of funny. If you ever watch Fox, I used to work there. There's a show called The Five, and Jesse Waters had a funny spin on it. He's a good guy. I want you to hear it.
So, Jesse, she has to draw distinctions from Joe. That should be easy, right? Just bring a mirror and put it under her nose so you could see it fog up.
That's good. So she has to differentiate herself from Joe Biden. But the more she does that, the more she starts agreeing with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So Trump's just going to be like, yeah, Kamala, we agree. So why are you running against me? Why didn't you just tell Joe to do what we talked about right here? Why didn't you just tell him that the last 4 years he was wrong and he didn't listen to you? Mm-hmm. Or you didn't really say anything, did you? You just sat there, didn't you? Yeah, you did. So if she says she's going to differentiate herself on Afghanistan, how? She already bragged that she was the last person in the room. How's she going to differentiate herself with the border? She was the border czar. On the economy, she was the tie-breaking vote. I just don't see the areas where she can say, I was different or I would have done things differently. It's just impossible. Her other strategy is to rattle him. Mm-hmm. Okay. The only time Trump was rattled in the first debate was when Biden said he was a 6 handicap.
Yes.
It just blew Trump's mind. Okay. He's been shot. He's been raided. He's been arrested. Yeah. I don't think you can rattle him at the debate. He'll be fine.
That's a good point, right? I mean, and then it just turned into bedlam. And it's like, wait a second. Okay, what's going on? Jesse's right. That was actually the only thing that really seemed to rattle him. Kamala's going to try. She's going to try and needle him. I think it'll be very, very interesting to watch. I'm actually really looking forward to this. This is different, right, than the Biden-Trump debate where he was sort of like, this was like a train wreck in real time, only because you started to feel for Biden. Did you not? I mean, look, you know that I have very big concerns about Biden and Biden policies, and we're going to get to Hunter in just a moment. But, it's like, what are they doing to the poor guy? Why are they doing that to him? If I were advising him, I'd be like, no, you're not going near that debate stage, buddy. No, you're going to stay home and you're going to get some sleep. You're going to have your little milk and cookies and go to bed at 7:00 because you can't handle that. I mean, it's past your bedtime, for one thing, right? That was actually one of the excuses that they came up with. Oh, it's past his bedtime. They didn't quite say bedtime. They said, he's really not used to having to be up and about at that hour of the night. It's like, oh, dear. Actually, cringe. So someone made the decision that they were going to feed him to the lions. And that's what happened because he was his own worst enemy. The question is Kamala also her own worst enemy? And how much will George Stephanopoulos and ABC News really push back? Don't forget, the president of ABC News arranged for Kamala to meet her husband, Dougie. I mean, Dougie and Kamala would not be a thing if it weren't for the president of ABC News, who was friends with Kamala and Doug and set them up on a little date together. So Kamala has every reason to love the president of ABC News. And I would bet ABC News and Disney really would like Kamala Harris to win the presidency.